Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 314. My name is John Morgan. Cole Coffee is not with me because he is back home in Las Vegas. In fact, not only is he just back home in Las Vegas, he's on vacation. You believe that? Cole Coffee is, he's not really doing anything, I don't think. He's just trying to burn some time off, man. You know, this is a rare non-UFC week. Obviously, in Vegas, man, the way things have been, it's pretty much every damn week for us. I guess that'll change soon, you know, as we start to get back on the road. I'm sure more of the other crew will be taking some of our events and handling some of it. But, yeah, man, during the pandemic, it's been just about every week in Las Vegas, which, listen, not a single complaint. Not a single complaint, because that means that we got to keep working, you know what I mean? But it just means that when there's a rare non-UFC event week, you got to take some of your time off or you'll just never get to use that company-awarded vacation that they give us every year. So Cold Coffee is doing just that, hanging out behind the scenes, just chilling in Las Vegas. Me, I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back in Philly. I'm here for CFFC duties tonight, sitting down on a Thursday, as we always do. And tonight it's CFFC 94 on UFC Fight Pass. And then tomorrow, CFFC 95 on UFC Fight Pass as well. So if you're a Fight Pass subscriber and you want to catch some live fights, please do so. I know tomorrow night we'll be going up against Bellator, which that's a little bit of a tough head-to-head matchup, but we'll do the best we can. Me and CM Punk like to try and keep it entertaining, and as we kind of find the next stars, the next wave of talent headed to the UFC, which I enjoy. I really do. And it's been an honor to be working with CFFC and man, just staying busy. You know, we did the last one just 3 weeks ago, and here we are again. So, good. Shout out, by the way, to this week's presenting sponsors. Zachary Humphrey, still a presenting sponsor, was kind enough to send over some frosty beverage money via Venmo. It's John-Morgan-400. We didn't get to use it last week because Latchkey Brewing came strong with the gift package as well. But that doesn't change the fact that Zachary Humphrey is now presenting sponsor, my man. And joining him this week, Thomas Dunscombe as well. He sent over a little cash for some frosty beverage money over at Venmo. So, man, so kind. When you guys do that, man, it's so cool of you to do that. It really means the world, man. It makes me feel the show is appreciated and that you enjoy the content that we're putting out. And, man, we love having a frosty beverage in your honor. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. I can't have any frosty beverages right now because as I'm sitting down here, it's about 2:30 on the Thursday afternoon here because I've got to get this done, get dressed, head over to the arena, and get everything set up for tonight's show. So obviously, rolling in hot would be a bit of a mistake for a live fight broadcast. Not that we may have not done that once or twice in our lives before, but we're trying to do the right thing here, right? I mean, damn, I just celebrated a birthday. I'm getting to be an old man. I got to be a little more responsible. So, no frosty beverages this week, but what does that mean? It just means that Zachary and Thomas are going to handle us for next week as well, and we'll make sure and do it up big next week. Going to be an interesting week, right? We still don't even have a main event right now. Darren Till, of course, was forced out of that UFC on ABC 2 event. Our man Nolan King was informed that Kevin Holland was one of the first people to put his hand in the air and say, hey, I'll take that. I'll take that fight with Marvin Vettori. Let's do that. And I like the idea of it, man. I mean, but does the UFC want to put Kevin Holland back in there on ABC network television in the main event? And again, I'm not talking trash about Kevin Holland. We've done that. You know, we broke down the performance. I think everybody gave him his fair share of criticism, and it wasn't just about the talking. We know that's who he is. It was about the lack of fighting to go along with it, man. I got no problem if you're talking, but you got to fight. You got to be doing something too. And you know that last performance was just so bizarre, man. I think he took a big hit in the UFC's eyes. And are they going to be willing to put that on network television in a main event? We're talking about UFC on ABC 2. You know, not UFC on ABC 22 or 32. When maybe you go, well, we had one bad main event. We had 31 great main events before. Now we got this one. What are you gonna do? No, you're still in the honeymoon phase with ABC, as far as I'm concerned. And we know the company as a whole loves you. I mean, they're performing super well for ESPN and ESPN Plus. So it's not as if one bad card is gonna screw everything up. But Dana White, Hunter Campbell, Mick Maynard, for that matter, Sean Shelby. They know what network television means, and they want to put something on that's good, that grabs people's attention, that helps grow the sport. And I got to think they'd be a little bit concerned about putting Kevin. I would. If I was running the business, I'd be a little bit concerned. And again, that's no criticism on Kevin Holland. Everybody can have an off night. But you better have a real heart-to-heart conversation about what the hell happened in there. Dana, think about what he said afterwards that fight. I think Kevin Holland had a mental breakdown. I thought that was a little harsh. I don't think the guy had a mental breakdown. But it just goes to show you kind of what they're thinking, right? And where their line of belief is. And even if, the matchmakers were like, hey, man, we got Kevin Holland, we got Big Mouth, he's ready to go, Dana's got to sign off on that. And I just see him being hesitant about it. Again, unless, you make a trip to Vegas, you fly from Fort Worth out to Vegas, you sit down, one-on-one, you say, man, I messed up, dude. I'm sorry, man. The moment got to me. I was trying to be too entertaining. Yeah, I heard a lot of people say afterwards that maybe Kevin Holland does that as kind of a coping mechanism, right? Like if you're just kind of playing around. And it did maybe remember before that week, fight week, when he was like, "Oh, I'm just doing 3-rounders again. It's too tough to train for 5. I just want to do 3." And we kind of joked with him in the media day, "Oh, like you could be the co-main event champion of the world or whatever." Although now we're seeing 5-round co-main events. We'll get to that too. But it did kind of make me wonder, you know what I mean? And not to sit here and play amateur psychologist too much, but that did stick out to me afterwards, right? The fact that he was like, oh, these 5-rounders, I don't know about them. It's just playful at first. Like, he's like, I don't want the main event anymore. It's just playful. But then when he goes out and performs like that, I heard some people, kind of float the idea that maybe that's his coping mechanism. If you lose, but you weren't really trying anyway, then did you really lose? Are you okay? Man, you start getting to the upper echelon of the sport, that's dangerous, man. That's not going to get you over the hump. Compare that to a guy like Marvin Vettori, who's one of the most intense dude I've ever met on earth, and I love him for it. I always joke about what a hothead he is, but he's like, I'm coming to kill you every time in there. So we'll see. By the time this is out to the world, you're listening, maybe we got a main event announced. I'm sure they're working hard. Well, I know they're working hard behind the scenes, try to get something done. I did speak to Vittori's team before I left yesterday, and they said, look, I don't know where we stand right now, man. We're working on it, obviously Marvin wants to fight, man. That guy wants to fight every week. That guy literally wants to fight every week. So, I think he'll try to stay in there, but you got to come up with a name that makes sense too. If you come up with somebody way down the list, no backstory, no upside, I mean, he wants to fight. He wants to keep moving forward. He wants the paycheck, but you need something that can help advance his career. So, anyway, that's going to be an interesting week next week. But I just laid it all out there to say that it'll be brought to you by Zach and Thomas. We appreciate you, boys. Thank you very much. Maybe we can get the old hot tea in. I think his frosty beverage fast has been broken. I think he wanted to do like a 2-week detox, but I think he went and got after it last weekend. So, you know how it is. We bring you back into the dark side. You think you can get away, but we bring you back in. It's been a crazy week, by the way. Everybody's still talking about UFC 260, and rightfully so. It's funny. I mentioned it being a non-UFC week, so because of that, we got Cold Coffee taking vacation over at MMA Junkie. We got Simon Samano is taking a little bit of vacation as well. So we're down a couple people there. Of course, man, it would be remiss without mentioning the last day of Simon Head and MMA Junkie was March 31st. So sad to see Simon Head go. If you're a long-time listener to the show, he's been on many times. Back when we could actually travel, back when the MMA Roadshow could actually go on the road, we would certainly have him on board with all the European events, man. He's dialed into the European scene. And just a good dude, man. Enjoyed working with him. We didn't get to work directly together a whole lot during his time because he was working early mornings, basically. Like, I think basically his schedules used to be like 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. So by the time I signed on, he was usually gone for the day. So we didn't get to work together directly a whole bunch, even while he was here. But obviously we stayed in touch and messaged, and his contributions were greatly appreciated, man. It was so nice. It really was a game changer for our website, to bring on Simon Head and Farah Hanoun. Of course, Farah is over in Egypt, so she's even earlier in the day than Simon is. But to have them both kind of watching the site and working on content while the rest of us were sleeping, you know what I mean? It really expanded the coverage cycle of the website. Which, man, I don't know how close you pay attention to MMA Junkie, but man, the amount of content we put out is It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're talking about like 20, 25 stories a day. And some of them are just little short posts or whatever. But man, just credit to everybody on the team for the amount of content we put out. But Simon and Farrah, they were kind of game changers. And obviously Farrah's still around, so she's still going to be doing great things for us. But we lost that 1-2 punch of Simon Head. But I say all that to say it's a good thing because he landed a full-time gig with a national publication over there in England. So you're talking about full-time salary, benefits, all that stuff that we like on the side. You know what I mean? So happy for him. It's a salary increase for him and his family, and all those benefits on the side. And he'll get to cover a lot of sports too, which he has passions outside of mixed martial arts as well. So he'll get to cover a lot of the mainstream sports over there. So happy to see that for him. Sad to see him go. But it just added to the craziness this week. Of course, then I had to come do CFFC, which was awesome. It worked out great because it was the non-UFC week. So I'm not worried about trying to get back on Saturday and making coverage and having to ask off for an event. But because of that, I feel like it's just straight from 260 into this. I usually take Sundays off. I didn't do that. I worked Sunday. Then I worked Monday and Tuesday as well. I took Wednesday off, but Wednesday I was basically getting my broadcast notes together for everything. I put together little notes for each bout, so I've just got some data in front of me. I do not have a photographic memory, you know what I mean? I need data. I need to see little reminders. And once I see the reminder, then I got it. But so I take the time to put together notes. Man, research for commentary I think is such a big part of it. For anybody that's interested in doing it, or it's something that you're working at, man, it was something that Mauro Ranallo stressed to me back in the day when I used to pick his brain for advice. It's just preparation, man, and you see it, and it just continues. That was years. That was before the John Anik era. But you look at Anik, and he shares a lot of what he does. His handwritten cards for all the data. He writes them out every single time. So he's got these handwritten cards with all the information on it. I use a computer for mine because my handwriting sucks. And if I wrote it in my handwriting, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to read it when it comes fight night as well. So anyway, I was doing all that yesterday and then boarded a red eye and then got some sleep, landed here about 7 o'clock in the morning here in Philadelphia. Took a little bit of sleep, and now cranking this bad boy out before we head over to the arena. So it's a fun week, man. I would not have it any other way. Staying busy, all circled around the sport of mixed martial arts. But as I said, the conversation's been all about 260, and rightfully so. There is no UFC event to turn to this week, but that performance of Francis Ngannou was just fantastic. I mean, we gushed about it on the and a half episode over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. Shout out to everybody that supports us over there. If you're not supporting us over there, please do so for as little as $3 a month. You get complete access over there to the and a half post episodes. Plus, it just helps cover all the costs of the show. So we really do appreciate it. But we talked about it, and people just continue to praise, and how could you not? I mean, just a fantastic performance, and it's awesome, too, to see the coaches over there at Extreme Couture getting the love as well. They really did a fantastic job, and, we know that, Eric Nixick, a guy that I've been super high on, man, there's a lot of good dudes in the sport, but he's one of the greatest. You won't find anybody that has a bad word to say about Eric Nixick, but you see the amount of dedication and sacrifice and effort that he's put in to the career of Francis Ngannou, and invited him into his home basically, and shouting out the son, developing a relationship with the family. That just goes to show you what's going on there. And it seems like Francis, man, talking to him afterwards as well, man, he's in such a good place mentally, physically, his game. And just looks to me primed for superstardom. I mean, absolutely primed for superstardom. You talk about the ties to the continent of Africa. You talk about the ties to France, which is a big market the UFC is trying to break into that hasn't been able to for a long time because MMA was illegal. Now it's legal, but the pandemic set in. That's a big market for him. And then just the fact that the guy looks like the baddest dude on the planet, right? I mean, the heavyweight champ is the baddest dude on the planet. But when it looks like the baddest dude on the planet, no offense to Stipe, no offense whatsoever to Stipe Miocic. I mean, obviously he had the fantastic backstory of being the firefighter as well, and the humble dude from Cleveland and all that. But But throws the glasses on and wears the sweater and has the hair all sticking up. I don't, not that he didn't look like a badass. Steve is a badass, but Francis is just like, I mean, he's an action figure, right? So prime for superstar. Now the problem is hanging on to that belt in the heavyweight division is not easy, right? I mean, one shot. Derek Lewis could knock him out. Absolutely, Derek Lewis could knock him out. We'll see. But the John Jones fight, man, that's the fight we all want to see right now, right? And it's funny because when we would talk about that fight as a possibility, I never wanted to get too excited about it because there were so many steps that had to take to get there, right? I mean, first, John's actually got to go to heavyweight, which technically he still hasn't. You know what I mean? But, he does seem committed to it. When we first started floating out the idea of him moving to heavyweight, I was like, is he really going to do this? And mind you, I've always been one that says John Jones does not need to move to heavyweight to prove that he's the greatest of all time. I do not believe you have to move to another division to prove you're the greatest of all time. Dominating your division for a decade makes you the greatest of all time, or at least in the discussion, right? You know what I mean? You get to be in that discussion. If you beat every man or woman, depending on what division you're in, if you beat every man or woman alive that weighs in your category, you have greatness. You don't have this idea that you have to move to another division. I've just never been a big believer in that. If you work your body into a perfection of athleticism at 155 pounds or 170 pounds or 185 pounds, those are big jumps. Those are big moves. And I don't think you have to go do it to prove greatness. And the other thing is, and I think probably a lot of us are this way now, man, the champ era doesn't do a lot of great for the divisions, right? I mean, we don't see people that are able to go out there and defend both belts, and you slow down divisions, and maybe you cost yourself because you're changing your body back and forth. But even a permanent move to another weight class, I don't think is necessary. That said, the fact that John Jones is doing this is badass. And dude, if he dominates light heavyweight the way he did for a decade, then moves up to heavyweight and somehow beats the scariest dude walking the earth, that's massive, man. Dude, like at that point, did you just quit at that point? I mean, do you just hang it up? Maybe you got a couple of fights left. I don't know. I mean, if you beat Ngannou, then what? Do you try to go beat Stipe as well? I mean, I know Stipe would be coming off a loss, or maybe he'd pick up a win in between. But then do you say, hey, not only am I widely regarded as the light heavyweight GOAT, but I beat the scary dude and I beat the heavyweight GOAT as well? I mean, even just one win, even the win over Ngannou, as crazy as that may sound, since Ngannou doesn't even have a title defense yet, just doing that, moving up and beating the scariest dude on the planet, I mean, that is some GOAT talk. You know what I mean? That's some greatest of all time. That is stuff that just doesn't get done. But if you stick around and do 2 or 3 fights, especially, and it's not, some throwaway fights, man. It's real deal stuff. Not fighting number 15 in the division or whatever. You're fighting champs and former champs up there, dude. I don't care if you like John Jones or not. I don't care if you want to talk picograms and whatever else, man. You have to step back and go, damn, that's some accomplishments. So I was never too excited about it because I just didn't know it would happen. But now that Francis is champ and John Jones is in the middle of a bulk, it's got to happen, right? It's got to happen. I'm so fired up about it. But, man, the way this week is played out, I am not super optimistic that it's going to happen. Now, you knew right away there were going to be problems, right? When Dana White is in a press conference and takes the time to say certain things, there are not throwaway lines. He's always negotiating. He knows. Look, if this was going to be an easy fight to get done, it would have already been done. They would have already had the conversation with John Jones like, hey, man, if Francis wins this fight, it's going to be pretty massive. Why don't we lock you up for X amount of dollars, and we'll just announce it that night. We'll start rolling on it. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there were at least some preliminary conversations. You can't tell me that none of the executives at the UFC, none of the brass, or even none of John's advisors and managers had the foresight to think, if Francis wins this fight, we talked about fighting him already. If he wins the title, oh my goodness, we got to do this fight. Now, come on, man. They had some talks about it. They kicked the tires a little bit. and had a feeling that it was going to be tough to get done, because when Dana White comes, out at the post-fight press conference and says, "Look, if you want to get it done, we can get it done. Just call Hunter," but already throws the caveat, but I don't know if he wants to fight. I don't know if he wants to fight. Now, I saw some people say that Dana said that John was scared. Dana never said John was scared. Dana is, in the same belief that all of us with rational, sane minds are. John Jones and anybody else on the UFC roster is not afraid of anybody else. It's not about fear, but it is about protecting legacy. Is the money right? What does it do? We just talked about how great it would be for John Jones to move up and win and win the accolades he deserve. What happens if he moves up and gets absolutely smashed? What if he moves up and gets knocked out in 30 seconds? Then what? Then what happens? Then you go, you could say, well, the guy took a shot. He moved up to heavyweight. Who does that? And Francis is scary. Francis is knocking everybody out. The run that he's on, my gosh, look at it. You know what I mean? He's beaten legitimate heavyweights in less than a minute. So, of course, he beat a blown-up light heavyweight. You could say that, and maybe that would happen. But knowing how people feel about John Jones, I think a lot more of it would be like, see? Told you that guy was no good to begin with. Oh, all your picograms don't do you any good when you're up here at heavyweight. Do that. You know what I mean? It's just your whole legacy, something that you've worked a decade to build, could be irreparably shattered in a moment. And Francis shatters reputations. You know what I mean? That's what he does. It's not like you're going to go in there against Francis Ngannou and it's going to be I was going to say it's not because it's going to be some boring fight. He did have a boring fight with Derek Lewis, but we're throwing that out, right? That was a different era. That was a different guy. But you're not going to go in there and, get laid on for 25 minutes, and then you get done and you, wow, I came to fight. He just came to wrestle. I didn't know it was going to be like that. I'm going back down to light heavyweight where the real fighters are. No. If you lose, you're laying on your back looking up at the lights, wondering why you ever made the decision to give up your 205-pound belt. Okay? So John Jones wants to get paid for it, and I get it. He deserves to get paid, man. As excited as we all are about this fight, I think it would do big numbers. I think it sells over 1 million easy. This is going to be, ESPN is going to be all over this. It's the easiest storyline to sell ever. The baddest dude on the planet, the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? Like, come on, who can't sell that? It's the dude that has been dominating the division for 10 years, who, by all accounts, is at worst like the third best of all time. On anybody's list, unless you're one of those people that says, "Well, I don't put anybody on the list that has tested positive." If you're like that, okay, I get it. And I know there are some people that say that. But at worst, he's what, the third greatest of all time? At worst. Now he's moving up to heavyweight to face the baddest dude on the planet. Come on. It's the easiest sell ever. And, it won't be this like crazy trash talk. It'll be, some of the subtle, kind of nice stuff, Gosh, look at the promo they did for Stipe. That line that they had at Francis at the end, it just closes on that line like, "Enjoy your belt while you still have it." It's like, ooh, this would be huge. ESPN would be selling the heck out of this. It would be on every show. He's already doing the rounds, but they're going to be showing those highlights. Massive. Okay. John Jones deserves to get paid for everything he said. It's going to make a lot of money, and you're the one putting your reputation on the line. You deserve to get paid. And he came out and said 8 to 10 million is not enough. I agree. I 100% agree with him. This should be a Deontay Wilder money. This should be a $30 million fight. I believe that. The problem is it's not going to be a $30 million fight guaranteed up front. The UFC is not going to do that. It's just not the way they do business. And the first time they do business like that, they're going to get stuck. Now, listen. The money that's floated out there, I think you guys are savvy enough to know it ain't the money that's actually being paid, right? Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov. You think those guys are making $2-3 million a fight? No. The type of money they're making, 20, 30, 40 million a fight. Okay, so it's there. It's possible. Now, will this be a Conor Habib type fight? I don't know, man. Conor is a different animal. That dude moves the needle like no other. And of course, Habib was a big superstar as well. And then you had this, just, you know, intense rivalry. Maybe too intense for me, but still intense rivalry. I don't know that it could do Conor Habib numbers. So can they get, 20, 30, $40 million a piece? I think they maybe can. I mean, this is going to appeal globally, right? This is going to appeal everywhere. I think they maybe can. I just don't think you're going to get it guaranteed. You're not going to get it up front. That's just the way the UFC does business. So I applaud John Jones for holding out, for sticking to his guns. I hate the way he handles the negotiation process, man. Doing it in public is just not good. First of all, Dana has a bigger microphone than you, right? He's got ESPN at his disposal. I mean, I guess John Jones does to agree as well, but Dana's a master at this. He's a master at painting the picture. He's a master at controlling the message. That's what he does day in, day out. They control the narrative. They control the messaging. They set up what people think, how people feel, what information they're privy to. Dana has all the information, and he just decides which part you get to see, right? Going against him in public, I don't think is good. And, I don't think, for one, I don't think the average consumer hears somebody. And I saw, and if, in fact, even, I saw people talking about how, like, I don't see how people are siding with the organization. I don't think anybody's siding with the organization. I don't think anybody's saying, like, no, don't pay that guy any more money. He's making all he deserves to make. It's not that. I just don't think people like to see these negotiations out in public, right? I mean, to hear John Jones say $10 million, it's just not enough. He's right. But it sounds kind of shitty, doesn't it? Like, to the average person. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that are dialed in. I'm not talking about the media members that have done research on the, on the financial efforts of the UFC, right? And the antitrust suits and, what percentage of fighter pay and how the business operates. I'm not talking about those people. Those people are like, tell him, John Jones, you're absolutely right. You think that's the people that are making it $1 million by pay-per-view? No. That's the casual fan, the people that don't. So when they hear, what do they hear? Oh, this rich dude, he don't want to fight, man. He's just holding out for money, man. Get the fight. People just want to see fights, right? That's a balance. So to me, this stuff should take place behind the scenes. I think in order to continue the appeal to the fans, I think this stuff has to take place behind the scenes. But the other thing is, I just know in years of dealing with Dana White, it doesn't do you good to do this all out in public. He's going to dig in against you. He will dig in against you. He has said it on record, and I think he means it 100%. You want to be friends? I'll be your best friend. You want to be an enemy? I'll be your worst enemy, and I will make it my mission to bury you. Okay? If you're going to make it your mission to go against Dana White and to show the world what a terrible businessman he is and how wrong you're treated and all that, they're going to move on. Dana already planted the seeds to move on. Well, the fight to make is actually Derek Lewis. And by the way, that's an appealing fight. Of course, it sucked the first time around, Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, but I don't believe it would happen that way again. I don't believe it would happen that way if you had the fight a week later from the first one, but especially now. They're going to fight. Dana was already planting the seeds. We're going to move on. If you want the fight, take it. If you don't, don't. And he means it. Look, we've seen it during the pandemic era. We don't have time to wait around. I need people that want to fight. I ain't got time to spend 6 months talking about how we can make the fight, when we can make the fight, what we can do to make the fight. That's boxing, right? That's the boxing model. Let's sit here and talk about it, and let's end up doing the fight 5 years later. No. The UFC is going to move on. And I just don't think this is doing John Jones any favors. Now, does John Jones care? I doubt it. His legacy is secure. You can't argue with his legacy. From all indications, his financial future is certain, right? Like, I don't think he needs to take this fight. I don't think he's holding out because he's in such bad position that he needs the money. But he wants to get paid what he's actually worth and what the fight's actually worth. And I get that. But you're going to have to do it on the back end. You're going to have to do it on the back end. You're going to have to get that revenue share. If you believe it's as big of a fight as you do, and I think it is, then you'll take it. And by the way, you saw Derek Lewis come out in typical Derek Lewis fashion after John said, 8 to 10 isn't enough, and Derek was like, "Shit, I'll do it for 8 million." Now that's Derek being Derek, right? He's having fun. I mean, that's why we love Derek, right? He's, in addition to his exciting fighting style, he's just fun, right? But I tell you what, man, it really does go to show why I've always said I don't believe fighters will ever organize into an association or a union. I've seen too many false starts along the way. Certainly my time covering the sport, seeing all the different unionization slash association slash organization efforts. The problem is everybody's needs aren't the same. And when you're at the top of the food chain versus, you're just stepping in, you're hungry, and you're trying to get the bills paid, it's hard for everybody to get their interests aligned. And if a guy that's making 12 and 12, suddenly gets offered a fight for 100 and 100 because he needs to fill into a situation because some of the labor force is holding out or whatever, man, it's awfully hard for that guy that's struggling to pay the bills to be like, you know what? I see a better future for all of us as fighters, and I'm going to hold out right now. I'm gonna let these bills mount up, and I'm not going to pay them because I believe in a better day for our future. It's just hard, man. And Derek Lewis ain't making 12 and 12 either, but he hears 8 million. He's like, I'm set. You can you blame him? I don't know. But that's the hard part, is to get everybody's interest aligned and say, hey, let's put the sport on, because that's what you do, right? That's that's your biggest bargaining chip, is a labor holdout, right? You try to negotiate, and eventually you just say, I'm not working until we get this thing done. It's hard to get everybody on the same page. So anyway, listen, I hope this fight comes together. I hope that John Jones can stop the tweet and delete and just get into a room with Dana White and Hunter Campbell, and they can get this thing worked out. If not, I guess we'll be seeing John Jones versus, I don't know. What other fights out there? He's not going to move back down to 205 pounds. What do you do? You hold out and then you just take some other fight that doesn't make any sense? I don't know. I mean, could John Jones be done? It's crazy. All right, listen, other big news. How about Nate Diaz being added to that card down in Texas, UFC 262? Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. Pumped up, man. That card is absolutely stacked. Assuming I'll be there. I don't know. I usually cover the Texas cards, obviously, with that being my home state. Usually I don't know, though, man, with everything going on. I don't know. Usually in fact, the last Houston show where John Jones fought, my mom actually made the trip down from Dallas and came down and stayed for a couple of days, and yeah, we'll see. I don't know if she'll do it this time around or not, but it's a hell of a card. Look at that lineup: Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the vacant lightweight title. Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards in a 5-round co-main event. Man, I did not see this fight coming whatsoever. I'm excited for it. I'd really be interested to know how it all came together, and I'm sure we'll have conversations about that. But I mean, for Leon Edwards, obviously it makes sense, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of names ahead of him in the rankings, especially that are available and willing to fight right now. But this is a fight that, no matter where the ranking is, it's a big fight, man. You fight Nate Diaz and win that fight, you get a lot of eyeballs on you, right? Then all of a sudden you get to start calling some shots. So I completely understand from Leon Edwards' perspective why he took this fight. And look, bummed for Bilal Muhammad, of course, wanted that rematch. But Leon came out of that right away, laying down the fact that he wasn't going to do a rematch. And I get it. It's like, look, I took this fight kind of to stay busy. And to get a fight. I just needed a fight. And no offense to Bilal Muhammad, but I'm just trying to move up, and so I got that. I still feel bad for Bilal because, as we talked to him about, that's one of the big parts of why he broke into tears. He thought his vision was gone, which was scary. But B, he also realized, like this was my career shot, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen again, and so I understand why he wanted that rematch, but I think we all knew it wasn't going to happen. So I completely understand for Leon Edwards why he's taking this, and he gets this win. He's in a good position regardless of the rankings. For Nate Diaz, I don't know. I don't know what appealed to him. Why was this the one that got him out? Was it the stylistic matchup should be fun, But isn't Nate always fighting the biggest name possible? And that's been the big criticism of Leon, is that he's a great fighter, but he doesn't have a big name. So really surprised that this matchup took place. But man, dude, just the lineup: Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards, Beneil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson, Edson Barbosa versus Shane Burgos, Jack Hermansson versus Edmund Shabazi, and it just continues to go, man. Some fantastic fights. So obviously we'll have full coverage of that at MMA Junkie one way or the other. We haven't made our travel. I don't even know if I'm going to Jacksonville yet, to be honest with you. To peel back the Junkie curtain a little bit, I don't know who's going to Jacksonville. We still don't have that planned yet, so we certainly ain't got May planned. I think the idea of traveling kind of snuck up on everybody. We'd kind of been locked into our routine, so I think there's some budgeting going on and some things being moved around. We thought we were still doing the Apex, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, we're back in packed arenas. So we'll find it. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is a case of Nate Diaz kind of cherry picking a top ranked contender that he thinks he matches up best with. I mean, out of those top welterweights, I guess stylistically, it's probably the best matchup for him, right? Like, obviously you're not getting the champ with Usman, no disrespect. You're not getting the champ, but that's a bad matchup for Nate Diaz. Colby Covington is probably a bad matchup for Nate Diaz. Gilbert Burns is probably a bad matchup for Nate. I don't know. That'd be pretty interesting, though, wouldn't it, Gilbert Burns? But I just think of the power. I mean, the grappling obviously is great, but I just think of the power of Gilbert Burns even on the ground. So this would be stylistically, I think it's a good matchup. So I don't know if that's why Nate took it. He just saw that, hey, out of those big names, this is the one up there at the top that works best for me. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what got him back into it. So we'll see. But we'll get through this week, get back and get everything planned out. 261, 262, all the other good stuff happening. UFC 1 week off, but a bunch of big fights coming up. Bellator, by the way, is getting back to business this week. Make sure you tune into that. And I mean, obviously, I would highly recommend you watch CFFC live and maybe just tape Bellator. Go right now. Bellator 255, first event for Bellator since December? Man, they've been off for a while. Patricio Freire versus Emmanuel Sanchez in the main event, featherweight Grand Prix semifinal. The winner moves on to face AJ McKee for the tournament final. Obviously, the belt will be on the line as well. Pitbull carrying that in. This is the first event on Showtime, so back to Showtime. It's getting the band back together, right? Scott Coker and everybody on Showtime. But if you don't have Showtime, I think this is being shown live globally on Showtime's YouTube and Bellator's YouTube. So I think even if I saw the press release correctly, it's the whole thing's live and free on YouTube. So if you don't have Showtime yet, and as I understand as well, I think they're also doing like a free preview weekend. They used to do a lot with Strikeforce as well. They'll put Showtime on free for the weekend so you can see the fights, and then also catch anything else that they have on the program. Which they got some great program. More of a probably without Bellator. Now that Bellator's back, but in the lull between Strikeforce and Bellator, I probably watch HBO more if I'm being 100% honest. Or watch HBO, but Showtime has some good stuff. I used to watch Ray Donovan all the time. That was a great series on Showtime. You can go back and maybe watch that if you never watched Ray Donovan. Need to binge watch something. That was a good series. I'm trying to think what else I used to watch on Showtime. I think I watched Homeland for a little while, but that got too much for me. I don't watch a lot of TV. Anyway. It's Showtime's worth it. There you go. It's worth it. I actually get it through ATT Now, I think is what it's called. It used to be DirecTV Now, and it's not that expensive. It's a couple extra bucks a month. So anyway, first event on Showtime, but a good lineup as well. Neiman Gracie versus Jason Jackson, Tyrell Fortune versus Jack May, Mike Hamill versus the debut of Usman Nurmagomedov, Alejandro Lara versus Kana Watanabe. It's a good lineup. It really is. And if you look down on the prelims, by the way, Roger Huerta on the prelims. How about that? Magomedov is on there. Come on now. But if you look down on the prelims, what you see is Bellator really has gotten away from, well, there are no tickets to sell right now, right? So you don't need the local ticket sellers. I mean, that was always kind of the market, right? Is to get these local guys, sell tickets, but you have a lot of people with Bellator experience. The only reason they have Bellator experience is because they were a local ticket seller in a region. Which is a model as old as time. You know what I mean? That's how MMA made its living for forever and ever, was local ticket sellers, right? I mean, and you have so many guys that had huge followings in different markets and they can pack the building. They'll sell 2, 3, 400 tickets or whatever because people want to come watch them compete. That's big, man. That's big. It's hard to sell tickets, and the UFC does pretty well with it. But even they struggle on like some fight nights in areas that they've been to over and over and over. But Bellator's gotten away with that, and it just goes to show the depth of their roster. It's still not as deep as the UFC's, of course, but it's a lot deeper than it used to be, And of course, obviously, they launched their official rankings as well, which there were a couple questionable things. I saw some debates about some people where they were ranked. But you know what? Overall, it was a couple. So I think overall the list was pretty decent, man. If I'm being honest, it didn't necessarily match mine 100%. I had some variances for sure. I think there's 17 people voting, so I mean I'm just 1/17th of the value, so it's not like mine carries any more weight than anybody else's. And there were some differences, but overall, I thought the list came out pretty good, which is good. I think that's a good start. I mean, I think we knew going in that the people they selected were knowledgeable, and I think the list that came up, well, there's certainly be some tweaks. I think it was pretty good, and I know George Garcia, Gorgeous George, who also is a member of the voting panel and who heads our rankings at MMA Junkie, will tell you, when you put rankings together for a first time, it's always tough. For us, it was, first, adding the flyweight division and then adding all the women's divisions. And those first couple rankings, they're a little sketchy at first, but they shake themselves out over time. If you're like, how's that person number 2, not number 3? I mean? They work themselves out over time because people fight, and then it becomes a lot more clear. The first one is always a little bit challenging, right? But then once you get it built and people fight and people move up and move down, and it really shakes itself out. So overall, I didn't think the rankings were too bad, but they'll continue to evolve and they'll get better. And yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see improvements in the way they look just through natural process, So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, happy to see those come out. I am still going to talk to the UFC. The fact that we're now voting in the Bellator rankings means that technically I'm eligible to vote in the UFC rankings as well, which I'll be honest, I'm kind of interested in doing it. My big concern with the UFC rankings will be transparency. Bellator did a great job of transparency. The UFC thing, where over time, a couple times they've just pulled people and you can't vote on somebody that was ranked all of a sudden. It's like, hold on, man. That's negotiating tactics. You can't do that. You got to let me vote on who I want to vote on. So we'll see. We had a couple people we couldn't vote on here, but there was logic and reason behind it. For instance, you look at 205. You don't have Rumble Johnson. You don't have Yoel Romero, which those two guys would obviously factor into the rankings. But you say, well, why can't I vote for them? Well, because we have a rule that just because you're signed doesn't mean you get ranked. You got to compete first, and then you get ranked. It's like, oh, okay. There was a couple other names that was like, well, why aren't they? But it was cool. We reached out to the organization and said, well, why isn't their name in there? They seem like they should be here. And it was like, well, their next fight is in a different weight class. They're moving. It's been, they're past the period of eligibility, et cetera, et cetera. So everything was very transparent, quick responses to any concerns we had, and that's what I'd like to see out of the UFC as well. Because I know everybody talks trash about the UFC rankings, and I get it. But if you're going to talk trash about it, why? Can you help to improve it? Can your expertise? Can you lend your expertise to help make it better? That's what we always say, right? I mean, I've said it too. That we didn't participate in UFC rankings for a long time because we weren't allowed to by USA Today. But they've since changed their stance on that policy, and part of it had to do with, in the beginning, you remember the rankings were going to be responsible for determining the outfitting pay that came along with the Reebok deal. That changed, right? Where they changed and said, okay, we're not going to do rankings, we're going to do tenure instead. The longer you've been here, the better. Which that takes our rankings out of it, because at that point, essentially what they were saying is, by our ranking, we're determining somebody's income level, which you can't do that. So anyway, that's a lot of inside baseball stuff behind the scenes. But anyway, I am going to talk to UFC and see if that's a possibility. But Bellator, definitely worth tuning in this week, and they've got a bunch of big fights coming up on the very near horizon, so definitely worth checking into. Although I think you should watch CFFC live on Fight Pass and then check out Bellator. By the way, speaking about the outfitting pay, The Venom deal debuts with the UFC on the next card, UFC on ABC2. We'll get to see the new fight kits. I did do an interview with UFC COO Lawrence Epstein yesterday, actually, and that's up on MMA Junkie today, where he talked about the Venom deal and revealed the new payouts for the athlete compliance guidelines pay. So important to note, by the way, if you refer to the money that comes to those payoffs, it used to frustrate them that like the money was called like the Reebok deal. Well, it's like, well, the money isn't being paid by Reebok. Now it is. It is. It's going from Reebok to the UFC to the fighters, but it's actually the UFC that's paying that. So, they used to get a little bit frustrated. I think, number one, they just wanted to shelter their sponsors from criticism, right? Like, if you don't like the payouts, understand it's a UFC payout arrangement, not a Reebok payment arrangement. I think that's the reason they wanted to differentiate. It was really just to protect Reebok, and honestly now to protect Venom as well. You don't like the policy, you don't like how it works, fine, but it's not Venom, it's the UFC. So direct your criticism, comments, concerns toward the UFC, right? But when I talked to Lawrence, he did say as well, I want to make sure people do understand too. It's not just wearing the gear on fight week. It's also about taking care of your promotional agreements, right? Showing up to the press conferences, showing up to the media day on time, being there, answering the questions. The old "I'm just here so I don't get fined" type of thing, right? The old Marshawn Lynch, right? That's part of it as well as the code of ethics, which is I guess a little bit more loosely enforced, but on fight week, you got to follow a certain code of ethics. So anyway, so that's what it's all. It's the compliance pay, right? The guidelines compliance pay. So it's a multi-pronged aspect of it. But anyway, so we'll get to see the new gear at UFC on ABC2. I have not seen. I've seen a couple of the what was it, the leaked Brian Ortega image. I saw that, but we don't really know. Is that the official gear? Was that something else? So anxious to see it. Venom, it's interesting, right? Because Venom is not nearly as high profile of a brand as Reebok. Not that I thought Reebok had the biggest brand power around it, right? I think of athletics, apparel and lines. I think more of like, Adidas, Nike, probably even Body Armor to a degree. I never thought of Reebok as like the big, like, the sexy name, I guess. Reebok was kind of like wasn't it kind of like, didn't feel like kind of like second tier, I guess. I don't mean to be disrespectful of the Reebok brand, but that's always kind of like Reebok was like the not cool brand, right? But Venom, Venom is if you're not a hardcore enthusiast into like equipment and stuff, Venom's been around the game for a long time. They launched in 2006, so that means they've been around the game for a long time, and they make martial arts equipment, and I think that was a big deal. At least that's the talking point. That was a big deal, that they wanted it to be specifically designed for mixed martial artists, not slapping a logo on something that was really designed for another reason, another function. We want something that is designed for the martial arts space. So I am actually kind of excited to see how this how the equipment looks, because this is designed by a martial arts company. So I think the gear is going to be good. I mean, people will tell you Venom gear is solid, man. The shorts, the gloves. Obviously the UFC won't be using the gloves, but Venom doesn't make shoes as well, so Reebok will continue to supply shoes to the end of 2021. But the payment amounts are going up a little bit. It's not huge increases by any stretch. If you check out the story on MMA Junkie with Lawrence Epstein, you'll see the actual tiers. They floated the graphic out there, so it's been shared a little bit on social media, that sort of thing. It doesn't go up a ton. What I did like was actually put all the percentages. They didn't say this, but I'm assuming it was their reason. Maybe it was just coincidence. But I put it on a spreadsheet to see like how much of an increase it actually marked. And the lower tiers was like a 12 to 15% increase. Now you're not talking about a lot. You're talking about $500 here, $1,000 there, whatever. But 12 to 15% increase is good, right? Especially at the lowest level, right? I always say, man, it's that entry level, the ones that are just getting into the UFC. They're the ones that need it. Whereas the higher tiers, might have only gone up by like 5%, So it was kind of scaled more towards the lower end. I guess if you want to be critical, you could say, well, it's because it's less money down there. Yeah. But as far as the percentage increase is good, because it's more towards the lower tier guys. So I like that. I like to see that. I like to see the lower tier, men and women get a little bit more money. So that's good. I did ask him about, hey, the idea of, well, what about the idea with this new deal that people can sell like one sponsor slot, one sponsor slot. And they did say, look, we not only are fighters allowed to do that, we encourage them. We encourage our advertisers, our sponsors, to get individually involved with the athletes. But the thing is, you can't. And if you see like the monster sponsored fighters, right? The thing is, you can't be a sponsor of a fighter without being a sponsor of the company as well. So it's not like, the MMA Roadshow could go in and say, you know what, man, we just picked one guy. This is our guy. We're putting all of our vast economic advertising resources onto one person. No, you can't do that. You have to sponsor the organization first. And listen, that's a business practice that you could talk about a lot. The UFC has said, look, they like the way it looks for the product itself to not have logos everywhere, but then their mat has logos everywhere. You know what I mean? The bottom line is, they just want to control the sponsorship revenue, and that's a place that I do wish. And again, if there was a union, if there was an organizational effort, if there was an opportunity for fighters to band together, this is something that they could come to at a collective bargaining agreement where they can negotiate the fact that, hey, man, we have one spot. That to me just seems very reasonable. Like the sponsor banners, okay, I get it. Like you don't like the way that looks, cool, totally understand that. You don't want the NASCAR thing, I get it. You don't want the cheap patches that are peeling off in the middle of a fight, which just looks like trash. I get it. I get all that, man. I understand the UFC's visual goals here, But, man, you're telling me you couldn't put, one logo that's and you have rules. It's no bigger than, 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall or whatever, and it goes on the left thigh. You know what I mean? Like, there just has to be a way. But it's just, I don't know that it gets done. I don't know that it gets done. Unless you have collective bargaining. So we'll see. Or unless you're Conor McGregor, then you can get proper 12 on the campus. I guess if you just become the biggest star in the sport, that's another way to get around the collective bargaining powers as well. But so anyway, we won't see a lot of change in terms of how everything is executed. The deal, it all seems to look the same. The payouts, again, are going to be a little bit higher. And the UFC does like to brag. And there is something to be said for you don't have to chase down sponsors anymore. You don't have to try to go get money, because there are, if you think back in the day, man, there were a lot of fighters that got, that got stiffed. They'd wear a brand and then never get paid money for it. And I mean, the thing about this sponsor deal and the way the outfitting thing works is that there are fighters who actually benefited from this. There are fighters who made no money in sponsorship revenue, who their managers didn't collect sponsorship revenue. And the sponsorship revenue that comes through the athlete outfitting policy or the athlete compliance guidelines actually helps them. There are people who won from this, but there are a lot of people who lost. And I just, again, I'd like to see the fighters at least be able to sell one logo, just one, a little 2x4. Maybe that's too big. I don't know. Just one logo, man. That to me, you can't talk about. And you often used to be a talking point. We don't want this NASCAR look. We don't want this NASCAR look. And I get that. But look at the canvas and the pads and the cage, man. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, it's cool if the octagon has the NASCAR look. We just don't want the fighters to have the NASCAR look. Like, come on, man. That doesn't make sense. So, but again, until you collectively bargain, it's just like it's like why even give yourself headaches trying to figure it out. So I did want to mention briefly, by the way, this Triller press conference. Didn't talk about it much on the and-a-half. Well, didn't talk about it at all on the and-a-half episode last week, just because UFC 260 was so appealing, man, and there was so much to talk about. But Cold Coffee and I did go to the Triller press conference this past Friday, right after the weigh-ins. Man, it was a busy day on Friday. Like I said, I feel like it's been a busy week, man. Yeah, I forgot how busy that Friday was. because we had weigh-ins in the morning. We had a couple interviews, media interviews afterwards, which was great. Misha Tate returned. She was there, gave us some time. Aljamain Sterling was there. He had a lot to talk about. And then, of course, we went over to this Triller press conference. Interesting, right? So first of all, we had to get COVID rapid tested there, which was crazy because we also had to COVID test for the UFC event the next day on that same day. So this past Friday, Cold Coffee and I both had 2 COVID tests in a single day. So that was kind of crazy. For all the tests that I have, I think I'm up to like 80 or something now. I've got it written down, but I think I'm up to like 80 at this point. But that's the first time I've ever taken 2 in a single day, so that was interesting. But so we go in there, and it was at the Venetian, right? I mean, Venetian, if you've never been there, you're sure at least aware of it, but honestly, probably the nicest hotel on the Strip, right? I mean, just absolutely gorgeous, super beautiful. Packed, by the way. Vegas is coming back. Vegas is coming back. There were a lot of people there. So we go to the Venetian. We have to go take this COVID test, and they had it all set up, here you go here and fill out your form online on your phone, so it's all touchless, and then you go here for your test, and you come to this holding room, and then once you get that test done, or once you get your result back from the holding room, then you can go to where the area is, the big area where the press conference was. Everybody had an assigned seat that was socially distanced. What I'm trying to say is they had this thing, I mean, they had logistics figured out. And this is not a big company. We actually know a couple people that I didn't even know were working for the company that had been hired by the company. We ran into them once we were there. So some friends of Cold Coffee and I both were there. And they don't have a huge staff by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm telling you right now, they had this thing figured out. And it looked good, man. It really did. Like, it looked big, and it was as far as logistics go, man, it was pretty well executed. And like I said, the friends of ours that they've hired, man, they've got some good people working behind the scenes. Now, they don't have a lot of fight people. So that's the interesting thing about this whole thing is what's the overall direction of this company, That's the interesting Triller Fight Club experience, I guess, is, Kevin Iole was there, good friend Kevin Iole was there, and he was asking a lot of people their thoughts on kind of the disruptive nature of it, right? I mean, boxing's different in the fact that the way things are set up, right? You don't have organizations like the UFC, right? So you can, basically just bid for people's services. And that's what a lot of, that's basically what this whole antitrust suit is about against the UFC is, guys being able to just, I can fight for one person one day and I can fight for another person the next. I could, if boxing, if MMA was set up like boxing, you could fight for UFC one week, and then you can fight for Bellator the next. That's what it is. So, as a boxing promoter, you can come in and spend some money, and you can make a splash, right? And so, when they went in originally with Mike Tyson, and I think the purse, I think I heard that they ended up paying out like this was like a $50 million event for them or something, right? Like that was their payroll for it. And what Triller is, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't used the app, but I understand it's kind of like a social media type app, right? Like it's an app, right? It's a product. Triller is a product, and then Triller Fight Club is the promotional arm of this. And when they first came in and said we're going to do this event with Mike Tyson, it's going to cost $50 million, I was like, you know what? $50 million is. I've seen $50 million spent in a lot worse ways. Like when if you think about the Fight Club thing as basically PR, right? As you're trying to introduce this product, and the way you introduce the product was by getting Mike Tyson to come in and fight. There's worse ways to spend $50 million, right? I mean, you could spend $50 million on television advertising, billboards, radio spots, banner ads on websites, pre-rolls on videos, and maybe not make the same type of impact. Right? As a Mike Tyson fight, I mean, everybody was talking about that. Whether it was like, oh, this is going to be a freak show, whether it was everybody was talking about it. So I thought, okay, man, they come in, they spend $50 million, and that's how they roll out their product. Okay, cool, made sense to me. Now that I see that, no, this is more of a long-term play. This is we're an organization now. I don't know, man. I don't know. Jake Paul versus Ben Askren for $60. Ooh. I mean, Jake Paul versus Ben Askren, I'm gonna find a way to watch it somehow. Yeah. Who doesn't want to see it, right? And I'll talk about that. But I just don't understand the long-term financial play of this, right? And then you start adding in like, oh, we're gonna have musical acts and all that, and it's cool. I mean, it is. Hey, we're rethinking the game a little bit. Snoop is there. Obviously, Snoop's been at the forefront of entertainment industry for a long, long time. He's got amazing connections. He knows the space. There's people involved in this thing that get it, man. And there is something to be said for, hey, man, boxing is kind of dying, but we're going to turn we're going to make boxing exciting again for a new generation of people. We're going to get people to tune in, and they're going to tune in, and they're going to want to watch the rap act in between fights. And I didn't see the first pay-per-view. I think I was working during it, but I was even talking to Kevin Iole about it. And if I remember right, I think we were working a UFC event during that or something, because I didn't get to watch the first pay-per-view. But anyway, he said and even Kevin Iole, who's will be openly critical of things that he doesn't, find interesting. He said, man, the way they did it, it was amazing. The production was unbelievable. The show was set up right. It was great. He was complimenting them on how good they did it. This press conference they did, massive stage. It was lit well. Say what you will about the flow of the show. I mean, that's things they can work on. But as far as just visual look, it looked amazing. So I get all but I just don't know how you pay for it all. How does this? I mean, when you talk about you're bringing in these big names, they Oscar De La Hoya is going to make a comeback. How much you got to pay that guy? But then you're talking about you got these musical acts and what was I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're taking a part of the action or something. I mean, you always do that, right? You can give away some ownership stake or whatever. But like, think about it. They announced. One of the people performing there is this new group called Mount Westmore. Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, E40, and Too Short. Okay, cool, man. Those are some huge West Coast, names. That's amazing. But how much you got to pay them all to be there? So I just don't understand how the finances of this work. But I don't have to. It's not my business. But I just worry about their long-term financial health and what the upside is. Now, as far as the fight itself, they got me. I'm intrigued. You know what? I said it before. When this thing first got announced, and I still stand by this too. Like, I still don't understand what Jake Paul gets by beating Ben Askren. I mean, you get to say I beat an MMA champion, yes, but you beat the guy that has. He'll even say. Like, he said it. He's like, I have no striking. I didn't need to. You beat a guy with no striking in an all-striking match. Now, you beat Ben Askren in an MMA match. You beat Ben Askren in a wrestling match. That means something. You beat him in a boxing match. I don't know what it means, to be honest with you. But whatever. I mean, I am intrigued because I'm like, I don't know what the hell to expect. So that part of it, I don't think I necessarily get the upside for Jake Paul. Like, I still think you win and people still doubt you. It's not like people now accept you and go, oh, shit, you outboxed Ben Askren? Oh, you are legit. No, that's not going to happen. If you beat Ben Askren, they're just going to say, so what? You beat a guy that can't strike. So I don't necessarily get the upside. But I do get the fact that it pulls me in because I don't know what to expect. Is Jake Paul that good? I think he's better than people want to give him credit for. I think he's taking the training seriously, and I think he can win this fight. Ben Askren is a much more seasoned combat sports veteran. He's taking more shots. Here's what I think, is that I think what's key is early here, right? Because Jake Paul has absolutely mowed through some people so far, but it's been nobody's, right? It's been like a fellow YouTuber and a basketball player. He's not going to be able to get Ben Askren out of here that quick. Flying knee aside, I get it. I understand. He was knocked out in 5 seconds. It's not like that happened to him multiple times or every time he fought. He's taken some shots over his career. And I don't think so if Jake Paul thinks he's going to come here and get it in 1 round, get it in 2 rounds, it might be a problem. Now, I don't think, like, will he be nervous on the big stage? Well, it is. It's crazy. I don't know if you guys know this. It's actually at the stadium where the Atlanta Falcons play, right? So you're talking about, I think it's called, was it Mercedes-Benz Stadium or Alliance? I can't remember one. I can't remember what the sponsor is. Alliance, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, but the huge, massive, huge arena, stadium, and there's no fans in there. They're going to allow 100 people. They're giving away 100 golden tickets, which, again, good promo work, all that. So I don't think Jake Paul will get nervous, per se, like under the bright lights. I think that guy's been he's a star on social media. I don't think he'll freeze up or anything like that. But what I do think is what happens when you come out and you just, you pummel Ben Askren early, give him your best shots, and he doesn't go away. Because I do think Ben Askren is capable of taking some shots. Again, the flying knee aside, the perfectly placed, perfectly timed, not fair to call it lucky, but fair to call it like there's a reason it's a record setter. There's a reason it's one of the greatest highlights because that doesn't happen all the time. I've seen people throw that same knee a whole lot and miss it or fall on their ass or whatever, That's not going to happen again. I don't think lightning strikes twice. So then what happens? Does he start to fade a little bit? We'll see. I'm intrigued. I don't know if we're going to cover this one, by the way. I mean, I know we'll cover it on the site one way or the other. I'm not going to go there. I know that I think there was some talk about maybe sending Mike Bond out there, but we don't know if they're going to take media yet or not. Again, they're still working everything out. So at this time, I will say, man, they took the COVID restrictions pretty damn serious, man. They mask on for everybody. They had, like I said, the COVID test they had for us. N95 masks handed out to everybody, and even though obviously everybody has masks, we had to walk through the casino to get there. So you have to wear a mask in the casino. So everybody already has a mask, but they were like, "Hey, if you could take your mask off," because I just wear like a regular little cloth covering or whatever. They were like, "No, if you could take that off and put on this N95 mask," So seems like they're taking it seriously. So I don't know what that means for if they'll let people into their bubble and that sort of thing over there, but we'll find out. So. All right, listen, you're probably tired of listening to me ramble, right? I mean, you got no cold coffee this week. You got no hot tea this week. You just had John Morgan. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. Like I said, appreciate it if you can. If you've ever thought about supporting the show, please do so at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. Building a little fun community over there, and I really do appreciate it. And we've got some other things on the horizon if we can ever get dug out from under the weeds here to take care of. But I see my phone, my text message has been going off. My CFFC crew is trying to round everything up and get the plans done. So I better get to work there. Tune in. By the time you hear this, I'm sure the Thursday show will already be in the book, CFFC 94. But watch it on replay. Watch CFFC 95 live Friday night, UFC Fight Pass. And then catch you some Bellator at some point as well. We'll be back with you next week. We'll have plenty of frosty beverages with our 2 presenting sponsors. And maybe we'll have hot tea and whoever else we can figure out. Until then, thanks for listening.